Move! Now!" Sergeant Daniel Rourke, 42, pale-skinned, square-jawed, and built like a wall of unearned authority, pointed at the young black girl sitting quietly in seat 2A, as if she were an insect crawling across velvet. His voice cracked through the first-class cabin like a whip. "You heard me, kid. Up! Out! You're in the wrong section. Unless, of course, you thought being quiet and sneaky would help you blend in." His smirk curled upward, a practiced expression he used when he wanted the whole cabin to know exactly who he believed mattered and who didn't. Passengers froze. Forks paused midair. A baby stopped crying. In the spotlight of unwanted attention sat Nia Carter, 15, petite, brown-skinned, shy eyes, violinist hands that trembled now against the armrest. She wore a soft gray sweater, travel pants, and hope. Her violin case rested beside her knees, a little worn at the edges, but lovingly kept. Nia swallowed. "Sir, I think there's been a mistake. This is my—" Rourke snorted. "Your seat? Please. First class isn't a library lounge for wandering scholarship charities. What, did you just stroll in here hoping no one would question you?" He turned so the passengers could hear him clearly. "This is what happens when security gets too soft. Anybody thinks they can play pretend up here." Nia's cheeks warmed. Her breath faltered. The senior flight attendant, Claudia Reeves, 39, icy smile, platinum hair pulled tight, leaned in behind him like an eager accomplice. Her tone dripped with polite cruelty. "Sergeant, she boarded early while staff were distracted. You know how certain passengers try to slip into premium cabins hoping we won't challenge them." The phrase "certain passengers" made the entire cabin flinch. Rourke nodded slowly, savoring the moment. Exactly, always the same pattern. Quiet face, nervous hands, cheap bag. Suddenly they're claiming first class. He pointed at her violin case. "And what's this? Another trick? Going to tell me you're some prodigy traveling to a royal concert?" Nia pressed her lips together. I'm going to an audition." Rourke barked a laugh. "An audition? In first class? That's adorable. Maybe save the fairy tales for Coach, sweetheart." He leaned closer, lowering his voice, yet making sure the whole cabin heard every word. "Let me guess. Daddy told you to dream big, huh? Well, this is real life. Seats like this are earned, not wished into existence." Passengers shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Claudia Reeves folded her arms. "She refused to show ID when I first asked." I wasn't refusing," Nia whispered. "You startled me and then walked away." Rourke cut her off. "Enough. I already know what's going on. You don't belong here, and you knew it." He reached for her arm. Nia recoiled instinctively. Rourke stiffened, eyes flashing. "Oh, resisting now? Interesting. Guilty. Conscience, maybe?" He raised his voice. "Passengers, please note, this individual is being removed for security inconsistencies and suspicious behavior." Gasps rippled. Nia felt her throat tighten. She thought of her father's advice. "Stay calm. Always stay calm. Dignity first." Rourke leaned in again, voice dripping with contempt. "Look at me when I'm talking to you. Or is eye contact too much responsibility?" Her pulse pounded, but within her chest, a quiet whisper rose. The verse Malcolm taught her for moments exactly like this. "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" Psalm 27, 1. Nia breathed in, slowly. Rourke mistook her calm for defiance. "You think staying quiet makes you innocent? It just makes you look rehearsed. I've seen this scam 100 times. Kids using fake passes, claiming they're authorized, hoping no one checks." He turned to Claudia. "Flight crew should really stop letting charity cases wander up here. Makes the whole section look cheap." Nia's breath caught in her throat. Her chest tightened, not from fear anymore, but from humiliation burning into her skin like fire. Her fingers hovered over her phone. I need to call my father." Rourke rolled his eyes dramatically. "Oh, perfect. Here comes the imaginary millionaire guardian. Call whoever you want. When I'm done, you'll be walking off this plane with security escorts and a note in our travel blacklist system," Claudia added with a smirk. "Maybe Daddy can buy you a seat next time." Passengers watched, horrified. Nia pressed the call button. The phone rang once. "Pumpkin, did you board?" Her father's voice, calm, warm, unmistakably composed. Nia inhaled shakily. "Dad, something's wrong." Rourke scoffed. "Put it on speaker, sweetheart. Let's all hear this bedtime story." Nia did. And the moment Malcolm Carter's voice filled the first-class cabin, the atmosphere shifted. Subtly at first. "Sergeant Daniel Rourke, officer ID number, now." Silence detonated across the aisle. Rourke blinked. "What?" Malcolm's tone sharpened. "This call is being recorded. Identify yourself immediately." Passengers exchanged looks. Claudia's smile dropped. Nia held the phone, hands trembling. But she wasn't trembling from fear anymore. Something powerful had just awakened, and the cabin felt it. If you have ever been judged before anyone even knew your name, then what happens next with Nia Carter will make you rise to your feet. Don't forget to like and subscribe and stay with Dignity Voices to follow her fight for truth. What Sergeant Rourke does next will push the cabin into full-blown chaos and expose a lie buried deep inside the airline. For a split second after Malcolm Carter's voice boomed through the speakerphone, the first-class cabin went silent, unnaturally silent, like the air itself hesitated. Sergeant Daniel Rourke didn't hesitate long. Men like him rarely do. Instead of stepping back, he doubled down, anger flaring red across his pale, rigid face. "Oh, this is cute," he sneered loudly, making sure every passenger heard. "Daddy practices his big boss voice, trying to scare me with some corporate role play?" Nia's throat tightened. That's really my father." Rourke raised his eyebrows dramatically, gesturing around the cabin. "Everyone hear that? Daddy is on the phone, which obviously means she's innocent." He barked out a sarcastic laugh. Claudia Reeves, standing behind him like a coiled snake, added, "Probably some call center supervisor pretending to be important." Malcolm's voice cut back in, colder now. "Sergeant Rourke, I am asking for your identification. You are required to provide it when requested by an airline executive during an incident report." Rourke rolled his shoulders. "Oh, now he's quoting procedure? Sweetheart," he aimed at Nia, "tell your father to stop Googling airport law and stay in his lane." Passengers exchanged uneasy glances. A man in 4C whispered, "Something's wrong. He sounds scared underneath." But Nia wasn't sure. Rourke didn't look scared. He looked dangerous. "Sergeant," she said softly, "he's not a call center supervisor. He—" "Shut it," Rourke snapped. Then he leaned closer, voice dropping into something venomous. "Kids like you always think a phone call will save them, that someone important will come running. Let me educate you. No one is coming." Nia's eyes glistened, anger, shame, disbelief swirling inside her chest. Malcolm spoke again, calm but unmistakably commanding. "Nia, move the phone closer." She obeyed. "Sergeant Rourke," Malcolm said slowly, "you have detained my daughter without cause. You have used force without verification, and you are escalating in violation of federal aviation protocol." Rourke chuckled. "You sure know the terms. Want a badge too? Maybe play officer for a day?" Claudia chimed in. "If he's really someone important, why haven't we heard of him?" Malcolm's answer cut like a blade. "Because I do my work quietly, unlike those who abuse their authority loudly." A ripple of shock spread through the cabin. Rourke's jaw clenched. He turned, scanning Claudia with irritated eyes. "Where's the report? You said she refused ID, tried to sneak in, acted suspicious." Claudia froze for half a breath, just enough for one passenger to notice, just enough for panic to flicker behind her eyes. I submitted it," she insisted. She pulled out her tablet, swiping urgently. "It should be here." I logged it as security deviation, passenger 15A, or maybe it's not there, Rourke snapped. I'm looking, she muttered. A murmur rose through first class. Passengers craned their necks. A woman whispered, "She's lying." Rourke straightened, red creeping up his neck. He stepped toward Nia again, a physical threat. "You caused a lot of trouble, kid. And when I find that report, trust me, it's going to— Sergeant, stop talking." Malcolm's voice boomed so sharply even the pilots could have heard it. Nia felt a tremor run through her spine. Not fear, but a shift. Something in the air changed. Malcolm continued, "You are detaining a minor without cause. You are refusing procedural identification. And as of this moment, I am initiating immediate executive halt." Claudia's face went blank. Passengers gasped. Rourke blinked. "Executive what?" Malcolm exhaled slowly. "Captain Williams will receive a priority override within 30 seconds. All movement on this aircraft and jetway will be suspended until a senior official arrives." As if on cue, the intercom chimed. "Attention crew, this is the cockpit. We have received an executive halt signal. All activity must stop immediately." The cabin fell into chaos. Claudia looked as if her soul had slipped out of her body. Passengers now openly filmed. The male officers behind Rourke stiffened, exchanging uncertain looks. One whispered, "Sarge, he triggered an executive code. We can't ignore—" Rourke snarled, "Shut up. He's bluffing." But he didn't look confident anymore. He looked threatened, dangerously threatened. Nia watched him shift, a nervous twitch in his jaw, a subtle tremble in his hand. For the first time, he wasn't performing for the audience. He was calculating survival. "Sergeant," Malcolm said, voice low, steady, and terrifyingly calm, "if you do not release my daughter's arm this instant, I will make one more call, and the next person you speak to will not be me. It will be Internal Affairs, the airport director, and a federal attorney, simultaneously." A bead of sweat formed at Rourke's temple. Claudia swallowed hard. "Maybe we should wait for confirmation, just in case." Rourke rounded on her. "You said there was a report. You said she—" "I'm still looking," she stammered. "There is no report," a man in 3A said loudly. "We all saw the girl sit down quietly. You started this." Others murmured agreement. Passengers were turning. The cabin, once under Rourke's control, now pressed down on him like a moral weight. Nia held the phone tighter. She whispered, "Dad, I'm scared." Malcolm's voice softened instantly. "I'm almost there, pumpkin. Hold on. I'm walking down the terminal now." Rourke's eyes widened. Passengers gasped. Nia's heart pounded. Malcolm Carter, the quiet, anonymous CEO no one recognized, was coming in person. Rourke stepped back, voice cracking as he barked orders. "Everyone stay seated. No one moves. This is still my—" But his authority was already unraveling. He felt it. Everyone felt it. The moment of reckoning had begun. The jet bridge door remained frozen open under the executive halt order, but inside the first-class cabin, the chaos only intensified. Sergeant Daniel Rourke paced like a caged beast, his boots thudding against the carpet with a force meant to intimidate. He was sweating now, not from exertion, but from the unraveling thread of control slipping through his fingers. The two male officers behind him exchanged stiff, uncertain glances. Rourke turned sharply toward Nia. "You caused this. Every bit of it." His voice cracked with anger. "All you had to do was admit you stole the seat. But no, you had to make this a circus." Nia sat trembling in 2A, her violin case now cracked at the hinge, lying like a wounded animal beside her feet. Her eyes shimmered, not with tears, but with humiliation. Her brown skin flushed under the weight of every staring passenger. Claudia Reeves stepped forward, arms crossed tightly. "Sergeant, she's obviously hiding something. People like this—" "Finish that sentence, Claudia," a passenger in 3A snapped. "Go on. Say what you mean." Claudia blanched. I simply meant she's not cooperating." Murmurs rose, but Rourke cut through them with a bark. "Everyone shut it! I'm handling this." He marched up to Nia again, towering over her. "Look at me! Right now!" Nia's breathing shook. He leaned down, inches from her face. "You think your father scares me? You think dropping a fancy voice on speakerphone makes me forget who you are? You're a kid who doesn't belong in first class, and you tried to cheat the system. That's all I need to know." Passengers gasped. Someone whispered, "He's trying to provoke her." Another added, "He wants her to snap so he can justify force." A tiny tremor ran through Nia's fingertips. She whispered, almost to herself, "Why is this happening?" Rourke heard it. "Why? Because actions have consequences, little princess." He suddenly reached for her phone. Nia jerked back, not defiance, just instinct, and that was all he needed. "Resisting again!" he roared, loud enough for the entire aircraft to shake. "You see that? All on camera." Passengers shouted back, "She didn't resist. She's a child. She moved because you lunged at her." But Rourke had already crossed the threshold into full-blown escalation. He grabbed Nia by the wrist and yanked her out of the seat. Pain shot through her arm. Her phone nearly slipped from her hand. Her violin case toppled again with a hollow crack. Nia let out a small, broken gasp. Claudia smirked behind her hand, whispering to another flight attendant, "This is why first-class standards are slipping. Anyone gets in these days." The whisper wasn't quiet enough. A woman in 1C stood up. "Your bias is showing," she said sharply, loudly. Claudia flushed but didn't back down. Rourke tightened his grip on Nia's arm. "On your feet, now. We're taking you off this aircraft." Nia swayed unsteadily. Her heart hammered painfully, her breath short and shallow. Passengers kept recording, phones everywhere, but humiliation still burned through her like fire. Rourke leaned close, voice dripping venom. "Let's see Daddy's reaction when I escort you through the terminal in cuffs. Bet he won't sound so big then." Nia felt the whole world closing in. Noise, eyes, humiliation, force. But then, through the roaring in her ears, she felt a whisper rise inside her heart. The same one her father taught her, the same one she repeated before every audition. "He will hide me in his shelter in the day of trouble." Psalm 27:5. Her pulse slowed, just a little, just enough to breathe. But Rourke mistook her steadying breath for another act of defiance. He snapped, completely. "Officer Brown! Officer Hale! Cuff her!" Both male officers froze. Brown swallowed hard. "Sarge, she's 15. And she's non-compliant," Rourke spat. "She hasn't done anything," Hale murmured. Rourke spun around, eyes blazing. "Do it, or I'll write you both up for insubordination." Passengers erupted. "This is brutality. She's a child. Stop hurting her. Someone call the airport director." But Rourke thrived on fear, not reason. He grabbed Nia's other wrist, wrenching both arms behind her back. Her knees buckled, and she stumbled forward into the aisle. Nia cried out, the softest, smallest sound, but it cut through the plane like lightning. Her violin case slid from the seat and hit the floor, the crack deepening. Rourke sneered. "No talent lost there." Gasps, shouts. One woman burst into tears. Officer Hale stepped forward, voice unsteady. "Sergeant, please stop. You're hurting her." Rourke's reply was a roar. "I said cuff her!" Brown hesitated. Passengers filmed from every angle. Dozens of phones now, capturing everything. And then, footsteps thundered up the jet bridge, heavy, determined, unwavering. Rourke stiffened. Claudia went pale. Nia turned, trembling, terrified, just as a tall shadow appeared at the aircraft door. The cabin fell silent, as if every molecule of air bowed. Malcolm Carter stepped inside, not hurrying, not shouting, not trembling, just walking, with the composed, devastating calm of a man who has seen injustice 1,000 times and dismantled it patiently every single time. Passengers parted as if the air pushed them aside. Nia's phone, still connected, echoed his voice. Sergeant Rourke, remove your hands from my daughter, now. Rourke's fingers twitched, his jaw locked, his grip loosened, not from obedience, but from fear. And in that instant, the humiliation became something else. It became a turning point, a breaking, a beginning. If you have ever watched someone innocent stand alone against power, then what Malcolm Carter does next will make your heart race. Don't forget to like and subscribe and stay with Dignity Voices to witness justice unfold. Malcolm doesn't raise his voice, but every word he speaks will dismantle Sergeant Rourke piece by piece, and the entire plane will feel the shift in power. Sergeant Daniel Rourke's grip slackened, but he didn't release Nia's wrists. His fingers trembled, rage or fear, no one could tell, but they stayed locked around her as Malcolm Carter stepped fully into the first-class cabin. The atmosphere changed instantly, not because people recognized him, none did, but because of something deeper, something invisible yet seismic. The air took on a stillness so sharp the hum of the ventilation system sounded like thunder. Nia's voice, small and cracking, broke the silence. "Dad?" Malcolm didn't rush to her. He didn't shove Rourke or bark commands. He simply stood there, a tall, composed, brown-skinned man in a charcoal suit, eyes steady, posture unshakably controlled. His calmness was more terrifying than any shouting could have been. "Sergeant," he said softly, "you will remove your hands from my daughter, now." Rourke stiffened, swallowing hard, but he still didn't let go. You don't get to walk in here and give me orders," he sputtered. "This is a security situation." "Security?" Malcolm repeated, voice smooth as steel. "Is that what you call assaulting a minor?" Rourke's jaw twitched. "She resisted." "No," Malcolm said. "You escalated." "That's not your call," Rourke snapped loudly, regaining some of his bluster under the weight of watching passengers. "You don't run this plane. You don't run this airport. I'm the authority here, and she—" Malcolm stepped forward, not a full step, just enough for the cabin to sense the shift, a subtle move that forced Rourke to confront the reality that this wasn't just a father. This was a man accustomed to dismantling systems quietly, efficiently, and without theatrics. His voice was low but amplified by the silence. "You are laying hands on a child. You have no verification, no report, no legitimate cause, and I am telling you to release her." Rourke finally shoved Nia forward, letting her stumble into Malcolm's arms. "There," he barked. "Released." Happy? Passengers booed. A few cursed under their breath. One shouted, "She's a kid, you monster!" Claudia Reeves, standing near the galley, flinched visibly. She clung to her tablet as though it were a shield, realizing passengers now saw her as part of something rotten. Malcolm guided Nia gently behind him, shielding her with his body as he turned back to Rourke. "Officer Brown, Officer Hale." Both men straightened like soldiers. "Did either of you see my daughter resist in any way?" Brown cleared his throat, sweat glistening on his brow. "Sir, she didn't. It was instinct." He grabbed her hard. Hale nodded. Quickly, "She didn't resist. She never resisted." Rourke spun on them. "Are you two kidding me? You're contradicting your commanding officer in front of civilians?" Hale didn't back down this time. "Sir, with all due respect, you're out of control." Passengers erupted with agreement. A man from 5A called out, "We all saw what you did." Another added, "She was sitting quietly until you started this." Rourke's face reddened, but not with embarrassment. This was fury, the kind that consumes men who've never been challenged. "Everyone stay out of this. This is official police business." Malcolm's calm sliced through the noise. "No, this is abuse." Claudia snapped suddenly, voice shrill. "She was in first class without authorization. I filed a security report. Sergeant Rourke only responded to what I documented." Malcolm turned his gaze toward her. "Show me the report." Claudia froze. I filed it." "Show me." His tone was still polite, terrifyingly polite. She fumbled with her tablet, swiping desperately. It should be sometime earlier. I logged." There is no report, Malcolm said without raising his voice. Passengers murmured. Several shook their heads. Claudia's face blanched. It must have deleted, or the system bugged, or... Enough, Malcolm said. Rourke seized on the moment. This is exactly what I meant. She, he jabbed a finger toward Nia, is lying. You're lying. This whole thing is a setup. You're making some big corporate show to intimidate officers. Corporate? Malcolm echoed softly. He stepped closer, and for the first time, Rourke stepped back. You still don't understand who you're speaking to. Rourke puffed up his chest. I don't care who you are. You're not above me. Nobody threatens my authority on my aircraft. Malcolm's eyebrow lifted ever so slightly. Your aircraft? The passengers laughed. Short, tense bursts. Rourke's eyes darted. Doubt crept in. Malcolm's voice became a scalpel. Authority is not a weapon. Authority is a responsibility. You have failed it at every turn today. Nia watched from behind her father's arm, breath catching as she saw the truth unfold. Malcolm wasn't just defending her. He was dissecting the entire event with quiet precision, turning the weight of the moment against the ones who abused their power. Rourke tried one last surge of dominance. You think you can walk in here and scare me? You think you can bypass protocol with your big words and fancy tone? You want to lecture me about responsibility? This kid faked a pass. Her story didn't add up. And she... Stop. Malcolm said it gently, but the word froze the cabin and froze Rourke's rant mid-breath. Malcolm stepped fully into Rourke's space now, close enough to look directly into the man's trembling eyes. You put your hands on my daughter, he said quietly. You tore up her legitimate boarding pass. You dragged her from her seat. You damaged her instrument. You humiliated her in front of strangers. And you did all of it on a lie. Rourke's hands shook. Malcolm's voice softened even further. Truth has a way of reaching the surface, Sergeant, and you're running out of places to hide from it. Passengers murmured in agreement. Sir, Hale spoke hesitantly. We should step back. Internal Affairs needs to handle this. Rourke glared at him. You step back, and you're finished. No, Malcolm corrected. He steps back, and he's finally doing the right thing. Brown exhaled shakily and holstered his cuffs. Hale followed. For the first time, Rourke stood alone. Nia inhaled, her father's presence wrapping around her like armor, and Malcolm, still calm, still composed, delivered the quiet sentence that shifted everything. Sergeant, this is the moment you stop digging. Rourke swallowed and said nothing. The power had shifted. The unraveling had begun. For a long moment, Malcolm Carter said nothing. He simply looked at Sergeant Daniel Rourke, a calm, unwavering stare that was somehow louder than any shouting the cabin had witnessed. Passengers waited, breath caught in their chests. Nia clung softly to the back of her father's sleeve, her pulse finally beginning to steady. Rourke's face twitched, trying to regain dominance. You think your little speech intimidates me? He snapped. You think I'm going to crumble because you... What? Walked on board like you own the place? Malcolm didn't blink. I'm here because you forced my daughter to call me. Rourke scoffed, but took an involuntary step backward. She resisted lawful commands. We had grounds. I was securing the aircraft. No, Malcolm replied, soft as velvet. You were securing your ego. Passengers murmured with agreement. Claudia Reeves shrank against the galley wall, clutching her tablet like it could shield her from truth. Malcolm took one more step forward, a single, controlled step, a chess move on a board only he understood. Rourke's voice cracked, losing its practiced edge. You don't get to tell me how security works. You're just a father with a loud voice. Malcolm tilted his head slightly. A father, he repeated the word gently. Yes, that is exactly what I am. A father who watched his child be humiliated, assaulted, and nearly dragged off a plane because you were too arrogant to verify a single piece of information. Rourke bristled. I don't need to verify anything when a passenger refuses to comply, Nia whispered, her voice trembling. I didn't refuse. I said quiet, Rourke barked, spinning toward her. But Malcolm stepped between them before the last consonant left Rourke's mouth. Every passenger felt the shift. Malcolm's voice remained low, but now it carried weight, authority, and finality. Do not raise your voice at my daughter again. Rourke opened his mouth to retort. But Malcolm wasn't finished. He placed one hand gently on Nia's shoulder, grounding her, shielding her. Then he turned slightly toward the gathered officers, flight attendants, and the watching cabin. His voice changed. It took on the tone of someone used to boardrooms of trembling executives, someone who didn't need to threaten, because truth itself was his weapon. You want to know who I am? Malcolm said quietly. Then listen carefully. Claudia looked up, dread widening her eyes. Officer Hale straightened instinctively. Brown swallowed hard. Passengers leaned forward. Malcolm inhaled slowly. I am Malcolm Carter. Silence. Blank stares. A few puzzled murmurs. Rourke let out a derisive huff. That's supposed to mean something? Am I meant to kneel because you dropped your full name? Malcolm didn't react. He simply continued. And as of January this year, I am the chief executive officer of this airline. The cabin exploded. Gasps, hands flying to mouths. A woman cried, "Oh my God!" Another whispered, "He's the one. The new reformer." Someone else muttered, "The CEO! The actual CEO is standing right here." Claudia nearly dropped her tablet. Her knees buckled, and she stumbled backward into the galley counter. Rourke stared at Malcolm as though the world had shifted beneath his feet. "Why, you're lying," he choked out. "There's no way. I would have known. Someone would have told us." Malcolm didn't break eye contact. "No, you wouldn't have known. I don't parade my title. I don't attend ribbon cuttings. I do not plaster my face across terminals. I believe leadership is service, not spectacle." Rourke's breath hitched. He fumbled for his radio, as if confirmation might resurrect his collapsing authority. Malcolm's next words crushed the last of Rourke's resistance. "And while you were busy tearing up my daughter's boarding pass, I was in the middle of finalizing the training overhaul for your department." His voice sharpened, though never raised. "Imagine my disappointment, Sergeant, seeing firsthand why such reform was needed." Nia felt heat rise in her chest, not humiliation, but the fragile bloom of dignity returning. Rourke's radio crackled with a voice from operations. "Sergeant Rourke, be advised. Mr. Carter's identity has been confirmed. I repeat, the CEO is on board. Internal affairs and airport leadership are en route to your position. Stand down immediately." Passengers cheered. An older woman clapped her hands together. A man in 4C said, "Sir, thank you. Thank you for showing up for her." Rourke's face drained of all color. He stumbled backward until his shoulders hit the bulkhead. Claudia whispered hoarsely, "He's the CEO! He's the CEO!" Over and over, as though saying it might undo what she had already done. Nia touched her father's hand, eyes filling. "Dad, I didn't want any of this." Malcolm looked at her with the gentlest expression she'd seen all day. "You didn't cause this?" he murmured. "They did." He turned back toward Rourke, a man now visibly trembling. Malcolm's voice lowered again. "Sergeant, everything you did today is documented. Every word, every action, every moment you escalated instead of verifying. Every time you chose prejudice over procedure. All of it." Rourke shook his head, stammering. You don't understand. Her story didn't add up. She looked suspicious." Malcolm stepped closer, only inches separating them. "Suspicious?" he repeated quietly. "Because she's a 15-year-old black girl in first class?" Rourke's eyes flickered. Guilt, defensiveness, fear. Malcolm pressed on. "Authority is not a shield for bias. It is not a weapon for humiliation." He paused, letting the weight of the moment settle across the cabin. "For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil." Ecclesiastes 12:14. Passengers fell silent, a holy kind of silence. Rourke's breathing fractured. Malcolm turned slightly, addressing the entire cabin. "My daughter traveled today with courage. Far more courage than those who were meant to protect her. And this ends now." He faced Rourke fully again. "You will answer for your actions." The cabin exhaled, a long collective release of tension. Nia squeezed her father's hand. The power had shifted, truth had spoken, and the unraveling of Sergeant Rourke had officially begun. If you have ever witnessed truth slice through corruption like light through darkness, then what happens next will leave you stunned. Don't forget to like and subscribe and stay with Dignity Voices as justice takes center stage. The system now moves. Internal Affairs arrives, Airport Command intervenes, and the fight turns explosive as Rourke tries desperately to save himself. For a moment, no one moved. The name had landed. The title had landed. The reality had landed. Malcolm Carter, CEO. Sergeant Daniel Rourke stood pinned in place by invisible nails of his own making, eyes darting between Malcolm, the passengers' phones, and the two officers who had just stepped away from his side. Claudia Reeves looked like she'd seen a ghost that remembered everything she'd ever said. The radio on Rourke's shoulder crackled again. "Sergeant Rourke, be advised," came the voice of Airport Command. "Internal Affairs and airport leadership are approaching the aircraft. All involved personnel are to remain on site. Do not engage further with the passenger in question. Stand by." Passengers murmured. Some smiled with relief. Others just sagged in their seats, the adrenaline finally wearing off. Malcolm turned toward Nia first. "You all right?" he asked quietly. She nodded, though her hands still shook. I think so." He touched her cheek gently. "You did everything right." Then his expression shifted, soft warmth hardening into that quiet, surgical focus he reserved for breaking systems from the inside. He faced the cabin, not to grandstand, but to clarify. "Ladies and gentlemen," Malcolm said, "I'm sorry you had to witness what just happened. You were not supposed to be part of this. None of you." A man in 4C shook his head. "We're glad we were," he said. "Otherwise, no one would have believed her." Others nodded. A woman added, "Thank you for coming. Most people with power don't show up." Malcolm inclined his head slightly. "Power that doesn't show up isn't real power. It's costume." He turned back to the officers. "Officer Brown, Officer Hale." They straightened. "Yes, sir?" "You will both keep your body cams running," Malcolm said. "You will preserve every second of what has occurred here today. There will be no missing footage, no malfunctions, no overwritten files. Understood?" "Yes, sir," Brown said quickly. Hale nodded. Rourke snarled, finding his voice again. "You don't give orders in my department." Malcolm studied him. "Your department?" Rourke jabbed a finger vaguely toward the terminal. "Security. Law enforcement. We don't answer to corporate suits. You think your CEO badge means you can walk into an active scene and run it like a team meeting?" Malcolm tilted his head. "This isn't an active scene. This is a crime scene." Gasps. Someone whispered. "Oh, wow. A crime?" Rourke spat. "You're accusing me of a crime now?" Malcolm's voice didn't change. "Yes." He let the word hang. "You assaulted a minor. You detained her without cause. You tore up government-issued travel documentation. You used force after two officers questioned its necessity. You ignored procedure. You attempted to silence a victim in front of dozens of witnesses. Yes, Sergeant, this is a crime scene." Rourke looked around desperately. "You all saw. She was in a seat she didn't belong in." The flight attendant reported. Malcolm shifted his focus to Claudia. "Ms. Reeves," he said, "would you like to repeat your report, with Internal Affairs minutes away?" Claudia's throat worked. I reported what I perceived as a potential security issue," she stammered. "You lied," a passenger snapped. "You targeted her," another added. Claudia's voice trembled. I thought she'd slipped in. She looked out of place. A young girl. Alone. First class." "And that," Malcolm said quietly, is exactly the rot we will cut out. He glanced toward the cockpit. I'd like to speak with the captain, please. As if summoned, Captain Williams stepped out from behind the cockpit door, his face tense, hat tucked under his arm. Mr. Carter, he said, voice steady but anxious. We received your halt order. We're at full stop. Ground control is frozen pushback. Malcolm nodded. Thank you for complying. The captain's eyes fell on Nia, wrists red, eyes still shining with the remnants of tears she refused to let fall. I'm sorry, he said softly. No one should board my aircraft and be treated this way. Malcolm considered him, then shook his head slightly. Your apology is noted, but this isn't just about one person's behavior. This is about a culture that made it possible. Rourke scoffed, desperate. Culture? Culture didn't force her to copy a boarding pass. Culture didn't... She had a legitimate first-class authorization, Malcolm cut in. He reached into his jacket and produced a sleek black executive access card, tapping it against his phone. A moment later, his screen filled with internal data. Nia Carter, he read. Elite Unlimited Authorization. Permanent first-class eligibility tied to Executive Family Benefit Program. He turned the screen so the cabin and officers could see. Her seat is as valid as mine would be. More valid than yours, Sergeant. Rourke's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping on dry land. Malcolm's voice dropped. You didn't question her documentation. You questioned her existence in this space. Silence thickened. Airport Command's voice returned over the radio. All units, be advised. Internal Affairs and Airport Director approaching gate. All involved remain in position. Mr. Carter, you have full cooperation. Captain Williams cleared his throat. Mr. Carter, may I ask about the flight itself? The passengers. He gestured around the cabin. Many of them have connections, schedules. We've already delayed beyond our window. Malcolm looked at the passengers, really looked at them. Families, business travelers, older couples, ordinary people who had just watched a child be humiliated in the name of security. I know, he said quietly. And I'm sorry. He paused. Then he straightened. This flight is not departing today. The cabin erupted. What? Canceled? Oh my God. You're canceling the whole thing? Rourke actually laughed, a broken sound. You're kidding. You'd tank your own on-time record for this little show? Malcolm didn't look at him. I will not allow an aircraft with this unresolved incident, this level of trauma inflicted on one of my passengers, my daughter or not, to be sealed in a metal tube for several hours, he said. This is now an investigative scene. This aircraft will be deplaned, inspected, and documented. The captain hesitated, then nodded slowly. Understood, sir. I'll inform operations. Passengers' frustration flared, but many shook their heads with grim acceptance. A woman in 1C spoke up. I'd rather miss my connection than pretend this didn't happen, a man added. If they swept this under the rug and took off, that would be worse. Malcolm faced the cabin fully now. Every passenger on this flight will be rebooked at no additional cost, he said. You will receive compensation for your inconvenience. If this disruption cost you something significant, a wedding, a funeral, a crucial appointment, our team will be here to listen and assist. You are not collateral damage to me. You are witnesses, and I will not insult you by asking you to pretend this never happened. The mood shifted. Not joy, not exactly, but a kind of sober respect. Rourke stared at Malcolm, incredulous. You canceled an entire flight just to make a point? Malcolm finally looked at him again. No, he said. I canceled it so no one could say this was handled quietly. He stepped closer one last time. You thought you could bury this under noise, Sergeant, under procedure, under intimidation. But the moment you put your hands on my daughter, you handed me the spotlight. And I intend to shine it on every corner of this system that looks like you. Rourke's composure cracked. You can't destroy my career over one misunderstanding. Malcolm's voice softened, not out of pity, but finality. "You did that yourself." Behind them, the shadow of several figures appeared at the aircraft door. Internal Affairs, the airport director, legal counsel. The real reckoning was about to begin. And for the first time in his career, Sergeant Daniel Rourke had nowhere left to hide. Internal Affairs stepped onto the aircraft like a cold wind. 3 investigators in dark suits. The airport director, stiff and grim. 2 attorneys with tablets already recording statements. Sergeant Daniel Rourke looked suddenly small, like a man pulled out of his own armor. His uniform seemed to shrink on him. His shoulders dipped, his hands twitched, his jaw wavered. The lead investigator, a tall woman with silver-rimmed glasses, surveyed the cabin slowly. The recording passengers, the broken violin case, the terrified girl, and the CEO standing like an unmovable pillar beside her. Her gaze landed on Rourke last. "Sergeant," she said calmly, "you are to remain still. As of this moment, you are relieved of active authority pending investigation." Rourke tried to gather himself. "You... This whole thing is blown out of proportion. I was following protocol." "Which protocol instructs an officer to escalate force with a compliant minor without verifying documentation?" she asked. Rourke's mouth opened. No sound came out. Another investigator stepped forward. "Which protocol allows detaining a passenger based solely on the flight attendant's unverified claim?" Claudia Reeves flinched. A third investigator added, "Which part of the training manual authorizes physical restraint before ID is checked?" Rourke's eyes darted desperately between them. Finally, he snapped, "You don't understand. I was told she was a threat." The lead investigator responded, "By whom?" Claudia's eyes widened. Her tablet slipped from her trembling hands and hit the floor with a clatter. Rourke pointed at her instantly. "Her! Reeves told me she logged a report. She told me the girl was refusing ID, acting suspicious, possibly carrying something inside the case." Claudia stepped back, horrified. Sergeant, I never said she was dangerous. I only—" "You said enough," Rourke roared. "You filed that report so I'd remove her fast. You said the captain was tired of delays, that she looked like she wandered in from coach, that she didn't match the cabin profile. Your words. I wouldn't have touched her if you hadn't." Passengers gasped. Claudia's composure shattered. Sergeant, you're twisting." "Am I?" Rourke's voice cracked, rage and panic mixing like acid. "You said she looked suspicious because she was alone, young, and—" He hesitated, glancing at the passengers' cameras, but the moment was too far gone to hide. "Because she was a misplacement, remember? You said first class has a certain expectation, and she broke it just by sitting there." Claudia covered her mouth. Several passengers muttered angrily. The investigators' expressions hardened. Rourke, breath heaving, continued his unraveling monologue. "You think I wanted this? You think I enjoy detaining kids? No, but do you know what our supervisors say?" He jabbed a shaking finger toward the galley. "They tell us to move anyone who looks out of place. Fast, no questions. Because delays cost money and complaints from entitled passengers matter more than sensitivity protocols." Malcolm stepped slightly forward, eyes narrowing. "What supervisors?" he asked quietly. Rourke laughed, broken. "Oh, you know them. The ones who smile in meetings and hide the data. They've got a whole list. People they call high-risk seaters. Kids, nervous travelers, minorities traveling alone, anyone who makes the front cabin uncomfortable." Passengers' faces burned with disgust. Rourke ran a hand over his face, spiraling. "It's not just this flight, it's all of them. We're told to remove fast and justify later. Management doesn't care if we're wrong. They just care that first class looks premium on paper." Claudia's knees buckled. "That's not true." "Stop lying," Rourke shouted. "You told me yourself you flagged 3 passengers last month for atmosphere disruption because they didn't fit the image." The investigators turned to Claudia sharply. "What were the reasons?" one asked. She couldn't speak. Passengers captured every second. "And that's not all," Rourke continued, voice rising. Body cam footage gets erased sometimes. Accidentally. Complaints get buried. Reports go missing when supervisors decide an officer is too valuable to risk. There are quotas, unofficial ones. Remove 2 questionable passengers per month, and you get praised for vigilance. Several gasps sounded. Even Officer Hale blinked in horror. Malcolm's expression remained controlled, but his jaw tightened. Sergeant, the lead investigator said, are you stating that systemic discrimination is being actively encouraged and concealed? Rourke's voice cracked. I'm stating that I'm not the only one who did wrong today, and I'm sure as hell not going down alone. His shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of him. I messed up, he said, eyes dark and defeated. I shouldn't have touched her. I shouldn't have raised my voice. I shouldn't have believed Reeves without proof. I know all that. His voice lowered into something hoarse, raw. But I swear on everything I've got left. I'm not the only one. Silence. A deep, weighty silence. Nia clutched Malcolm's sleeve again, overwhelmed by the truth unraveling so loudly, so publicly. Her father placed a hand gently over hers. Then he spoke, voice low but resonant. Thank you for telling the truth, Malcolm said. Confession does not erase harm, but it begins the work of justice. Rourke's eyes lifted toward him, hollow and frantic. Malcolm continued. Scripture says, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. Passengers murmured softly. But freedom, Malcolm added, always costs something. Rourke closed his eyes. Internal Affairs moved in. Sergeant Daniel Rourke, the lead investigator said, you are hereby detained pending formal inquiry into misconduct, abuse of authority, and civil rights violations. 2 officers took his arms, not violently, but firmly. Rourke didn't resist. He couldn't. His world had already collapsed. Claudia let out a sob as her own tablet was seized. Passengers watched, shaken but relieved, as the machinery of accountability finally moved. Malcolm pulled Nia close, her head resting briefly against his chest as the storm began to settle. Justice had begun, but grace still waited ahead. 3 weeks later, early morning sunlight spilled across Terminal A, turning the polished floors into sheets of gold. The airport felt different now, not because of the new posters or the updated training kiosks or the subtle increase in uniformed supervisors walking with purpose. It felt different because something inside the building had shifted, something invisible but unmistakable. Nia Carter stepped through the doors quietly, violin case in hand. A repaired one, its cracks sealed, its wood polished, its strings tuned. She still traveled light, still wore soft sweaters and comfortable jeans. But she walked taller now, breath steadier, eyes clearer. The memory hurt, yes, but she had survived it. She had risen above it. Her father walked beside her, dressed not in a suit today, but in a simple navy shirt and slacks. A man blending into the world, not towering above it. They passed Gate 12, the one she had boarded weeks ago. Nia stopped. A new sign hung above the seating area, bold yet elegant. Dignity is not a security risk. Malcolm Carter, CEO. She swallowed hard. Dad, you didn't have to put your name on it. Malcolm smiled gently. I didn't put it there for recognition, he said. I put it there for the next child who sits in that seat wondering if they belong. Nia's fingers traced the worn handle of her violin case. And what if they're scared? Malcolm glanced at her with warmth that could melt steel. Then I hope they remember what you learned. Fear may be loud, but dignity is louder. They walked toward security together. The TSA agents recognized them, not with fear or performative politeness, but with simple humanity. A young officer stepped forward. Miss Carter? He held out a small laminated card. A gift from the terminal staff. Priority clearance every time you travel for auditions. No more long lines. Nia blinked in surprise. Oh, thank you. You didn't have to do that. "We wanted to," he said. "You inspired a lot of people here." As she passed through the checkpoint, something lifted. The last remnants of the weight she'd carried since that awful day seemed to loosen, drifting away like dust in morning light. They reached her departure gate, her audition city again. Same destination, same hope, but not the same girl boarding the plane. Before she stepped onto the jet bridge, she turned to her father. "Dad, what happened to Sergeant Rourke?" Malcolm exhaled softly. "He's facing formal charges. Claudia, too. Others are cooperating with investigations. But I didn't ask for maximum punishment. I asked for maximum truth." Nia nodded. "Do you think they're sorry?" Malcolm thought for a moment. "Some people regret consequences. Others regret wrongdoing. Time will reveal the difference." Nia absorbed that quietly, then gently rested her head against his arm. "You didn't have to cancel the flight that day." "I know," he said, "but protecting you was more important than timetables." She smiled faintly. "And you didn't embarrass him. You didn't scream. You didn't make it ugly." He brushed her cheek with his thumb. "A wise man once wrote, 'A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger.' Proverbs 15:1. Nia felt the truth of it settling in her chest like warmth. When boarding began, she stepped forward. The flight attendant, a new one, kind-eyed and soft-spoken, smiled warmly. "Welcome aboard, Miss Carter. We're honored to have you." Nia's breath hitched, but not from fear, from healing. As she walked down the jet bridge, she glanced back. Malcolm stood watching her with pride, his hand raised in a small wave. She raised hers back, violin case tapping softly against her leg. The gate door closed behind her, and just like that, the place where she'd once been broken had become the place where she began again. Nia's story reminds us of a truth older than any airport or system. Dignity is not earned by privilege. It is carried by the human soul. What happened to her is happening in quieter corners every day, often unseen, often unchallenged. But justice has a strange power. Once revealed, it does not return empty. Malcolm's strength didn't come from his title. It came from restraint, from calm authority, from the courage to confront wrongdoing without becoming it. And Nia's strength didn't come from force. It came from standing, trembling, but unbroken in the face of humiliation. When power meets integrity, integrity wins. Every time. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay with Dignity Voices, where real stories of courage, justice, and quiet power come to life. Justice is not loud, grace is not weak, and dignity is not optional. It is a birthright. Writing this story reminded me that even in systems built on speed, authority, and suspicion, a single honest voice can expose corruption, heal wounds, and spark change. Sometimes that voice comes from a CEO, sometimes from a 15-year-old girl with a violin, and sometimes from you.